when we're consciously creating the reality that we desire, it's like, what do you want to feel? Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What does it look like? And how can you start to bring some of that energy into right now? It's all energy. It's not the thing, remember. It's the way that you want to feel, and you can always create and connect with those feelings right now. Even if you think you can't, you can.
Hey friends, welcome back to the Awakening Her podcast. I'm your host, Talia Joy. Today I'm sitting down with Stephanie Sage, and this conversation was so good. It's not every day I can jam out with someone on the quantum and the universe, and I just love this conversation. Stephanie is an activator for soul-led leaders. She's a channel, she's a mentor. I've taken programs with her. I've listened to her podcast for years, so it's truly an honor to sit down and have this conversation. So we're talking all about the quantum. We're talking about manifestation. She shares lots of her signature techniques that she teaches her students. We also get into, at the end, I ask her about light language and how she activated hers, what it is, and just deeper understanding on that. There's also a couple spots in this interview, I just wanted to say, where the technology was a little bit glitchy. So we do our best. If you hear us turn into robots or it sounds a little glitchy for a second, blame it on Mercury. Okay, so with that, I know there's going to be so much in this episode that's going to hit you and resonate, things you can try. I know you're going to love this interview. So without further ado, let's welcome Stephanie onto the show. Hello, Stephanie. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited you're here. How are you today?
Good. How are you? I'm so excited to be here and talk about all the magical things. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so honored. So for everybody listening, I've been listening to Stephanie, and I've even taken one of your programs before and listened to you for years on your podcast. And you've been such an inspiration to me and just a seeker on the journey, a fellow teacher that was talking about the quantum before people were talking about the quantum. And I remember I was just starting to receive those downloads about embodiment and embodying, for everyone listening, her work that was spawned so many years ago, which is really about embodying her, that next level. What would she do? What, getting inspiration and all of that from her. And then I found Stephanie's podcast and she was talking about very similar things. And it was so amazing and inspiring and activating for me. And I've just continued to listen. You've gone through pivots and changes, and I love just watching your journey. So it's extra special to have you here because I feel like you're one of those people on my list of I would just love to sit down and talk the quantum and talk all of these beautiful things we're going to get into today. So let's dive into the quantum, but maybe tippy top first. Let's just introduce you for anyone that hasn't, heard of you and been in your world. Maybe just a little introduction, where you are in the world, what you do. Let's just get to know you a little bit.
So, my name is Stephanie. I actually go by Stephanie Sage now, which is like part of my shift. I am an activator. I like to call myself an activator for soul-led leaders, people on a spiritual and personal growth path who are here to just be their fullest expression, their fully expressed self, and share their gifts in the world. I love supporting people with overcoming any limitations that have been keeping them small or holding them back. And I've created a really beautiful brand and community over the years, Spiritual Boss Babe, and it's been amazing to support tens of thousands of people around the world, or inspire all of these people to really step into their power, share their work in the world, live their best lives, and believe that anything is possible if they, take the action and align themselves with their highest timeline. And so I do a lot of things within my work, but it was inspired originally because I wanted to create something that I didn't have for myself at the time, which was community and sisterhood and people on the path together. Because when we do this work together, we amplify each other's energy and quantum leap on repeat.
I love that. I remember years ago, I would see you go on like the girl trips with like all these other people that I would follow, like Lauren of Love and all these different people. And I was like, yes, that, because I think so many of us do feel a lacking of sisterhood and community of like-minded people. Sometimes we might have a lot of friends, but there's not a lot of like-minded friends, or, not a lot of people really going for their dreams inside and out. Or maybe it's even with me, it's like women, like sisterhood, other goddesses on the path is something that I'm so about right now as well. So I love that that was a big draw to you. And I feel that sometimes I'm like, fuck, I have no community. I have to go create it. I'm
Mhm.
going to create a community. And I also remember you saying on your podcast, I heard this a long time ago, that you were shy when you were growing up and in school and stuff. Did I hear that correctly? Because you're
Yeah,
talking also about embodiment and visibility and coming out. So was that your journey as well?
yeah, that's like a big part of my story. Actually, I've been talking about it a lot more lately. I was super shy, especially in middle school. I was basically mute. Like I didn't talk to anybody. I was the awkward, quiet girl. I felt like it was safer to be quiet than to talk to people. I wasn't always like that. I switched schools a lot and eventually became basically mute. And I remember actually that time. I remember sitting at lunch one day wondering why I felt like I couldn't come out of my shell. And I didn't understand, but I literally felt like incapable of connecting because people were kind of mean throughout school. And I just developed this, I guess, protective mechanism that it's safer to be quiet than to be seen and potentially rejected or made fun of or whatever. And it took me a long time to overcome that. I had very low self esteem, of course.
Mm, yeah, I can really relate to that. I feel like I wasn't as much shy, but the real self was never, it's like my real self was mute. So I was, even like funny or had friends or whatever, but I always felt so inauthentic or awkward. I couldn't have even had the words
Mm.
inauthentic, but it was like being what other people thought that I should be, or what is palatable versus what is real. So I know that, people listening can relate, whether it's that you were quieter or you just felt not self-expressed. It's like that journey, especially high school and middle school. It's tough, and I experienced bullying. So I know that really put a cap on how much I believed in myself and had confidence and all of that. And it's funny because now you talk about visibility and embodiment and
Mhm.
expression, and you show up and serve people and are a teacher and a leader and all of this stuff. So what do you think, just even starting out, were some of those big changes in that? Like, what has that journey been like for you, going from being so quiet to being more authentic and self-expressed now?
I mean, there were definitely layers of the journey. I was in an abusive relationship from when I was 14 to 20. And and that also was a whole journey in and of itself, which obviously like I said, didn't have self esteem. So that whole experience happened. And that's when I started building myself up. Actually, during that time, I started working out, I started meditating, and I started to hear the voice of my soul, basically. And eventually it was like, what are you doing here? You got to leave. And so after that, I moved to New York City to follow my dreams at that time, which was to be a celebrity makeup artist. And when I first moved to New York back in like 2007, maybe I think it was, I got into the party scene and I used to work at nightclubs and stuff. And I did things that were not the healthiest things. But later on, I realized that I was doing things like, different substances to connect and to come out of my shell.
Mm.
And later on, when I realized that, I was fine with it. It was whatever. It was where I was at that time. But I realized what I really wanted was to connect. And it actually did help me start to come out of my shell. And then I got into um, personal development and I was always working out. So the fitness really helped me step into my power and moving my body. And then I started getting into things like EMDR therapy, EFT tapping, hypnosis when I was a personal trainer. And I learned about limiting beliefs and trauma and how if we don't work on these things, it can kind of just fester underneath. And I saw that playing out. I saw that playing out when I was a personal trainer, I had my first venture to self-employment. I basically was on my own in New York City. It was a dream of mine before that for years to be working for myself in the big city and be making good money, doing something I loved. That was a huge, huge like milestone for me at that time. But I realized I kept thinking, what if this doesn't last? What if I fail? I'm not smart enough. Like these other trainers are better than me. Like, all these thoughts and things. And I knew that it wasn't true, but it felt like it was, if that makes sense. And I knew that there was something underneath. And so I was really determined to, get to the core of what that is. So that's kind of how I started working on myself and putting myself out there. I went for it because I was called to do certain things like training, but I was still really freaking nervous. And so I consciously chose to do things that got me out of my comfort zone, even though I was scared. And then I learned through it. Like I share this story a lot. When I first started teaching fitness classes, before I even started that, I had this strong pull. It's like the strong soul pull to do it. But then there was my human self that was like, oh, but I can't, I'm not confident and bubbly. And I remember like crying after a couple of my classes, thinking I sucked. And I was just like, I have to get better at this. Like, I'm going to just keep doing it until I get better. And so there were certain things that I just took action on, even despite being nervous or scared, because I knew that was the only way I'd get better. And then there was a piece where I was working on doing the inner work. I was seeing someone for EMDR therapy. I started doing EFT tapping. That was the very beginning. And then, there were layers and evolutions within myself or next levels that other things came up beyond that. But that's kind of where it started.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Like when you even said about substances, I kind of had a little aha of like, yeah, because I definitely went through my stage like with that as well. And I always associate it with like numbing. Like I was numbing the voice in my head that was I was in an eating disorder, so critical, so drill sergeanty, that drugs and alcohol was like, woo, just not be in that voice. But as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, connecting, like feeling like some of those substances, you're just having like the best time with all these people and you're chatting the night away and you're losing yourself. And it's like, yeah, that was also about just deeply wanting to connect with people. So thank you for that. And I love how you also talk about it's the mix of bravery creates confidence, showing up, doing the thing. Like my first few Facebook videos or lives were so awkward, my first 100. So doing it, teaching your first class, teaching your second, your 10th, your 20th, that creates confidence. But you also make sure to mention the self-growth work at the same time. And that's just such a powerful combination of doing the growth work and being on your growth edge, being brave, pushing yourself in that healthy way to show up and know that confidence comes over time. It's such a real, so many people are like, I was here and then I just did this and this and this, and here I am. And it's like, no, it's been a mix of being scared and being brave and doing the work. And I'm really glad you did, because you're inspiring so many people now.
Thanks. Yeah, you should have seen my first video. I think I'm going to post, I'm thinking like make a reel about it soon, but I was so freaking scared and awkward. My first video I made, and then also my first lives, like I even sounded different.
Yeah.
Hi guys, Stephanie
Yeah.
here.
Did you also go live and then start talking and then go, oh, stop, delete, and then go live again? And
I don't think I did that because I had to have a pep talk with myself for a good 20 minutes before the first live. I remember because I had a really powerful breakthrough during those 20 minutes when I did that. That's when I decided the only way that I'm going to get better is if I do it. And that's when I came up with this quote that I say a lot, that action builds confidence and crushes fear. And it's one of my teaching points in everything that I do because of that moment, actually.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you know what? Everyone has a day one. You're going to have an awkward moment. You just got to accept it.
Yeah. And I've heard this somewhere, we compare our day one to someone's day 112 or 10,009 or whatever. Like we think we should be masters at something when we start. And that's just like the ego, afraid to fail, afraid to look like an idiot, or afraid of them to all laugh at you or whatever else. Yeah, it's such a crazy journey. So how did you find the quantum? I'd love to start, diving into that, and even what quantum manifestation means to you, how you define that.
Yeah. I feel like I've been talking about it for a long time, since like probably since the beginning of my journey. Well, not the beginning of my journey, but the beginning of my business. I remember I made some videos about it back in like 2017. And it was kind of before a lot of people were talking about it. A lot of my lessons and learnings have come from my plant medicine journeys, to be quite honest with you. And also, I was determined to find other information out there too, because I knew that there had to be information out there. So, so I would receive these downloads and guidance during my medicine journeys about reality, about the nature of reality, and how to be a conscious creator and all of that. And I looked for books on it essentially as well, so that I could kind of map my own downloads with other information out there, and be able to explain it in a way that feels good for me. So I came across a couple books. Greg Braden, Divine Matrix, is amazing, and Joe Dispenza, Becoming Supernatural. And when I read those books, I also had even more insights and downloads, and started sharing even more about it, bridging it with my own experiences. And then there was a time where, as I was diving deeper and nerding out into explaining this and supporting people through it, because of course I felt a little crazy at first too, because I'm like, am I explaining this well? Are people going to understand this? A lot of it is channeled downloads, and I just was like, you know what? This is who I am and what I'm talking about. So people who resonate will want to learn more, and all these things. So I realized that during that time I was in the abusive relationship when I was 14 to 20. That's when I got into working out. That's when I got into meditating during that time. And I was always into spiritual stuff, like oracle cards and and like just like the spiritual realm, since I was pretty little. But it was during that time I got deeper into it. And then I got into meditation. And that time was living hell, because like I said, I was in an extremely abusive relationship, mentally, physically, sexually, like everything. And the meditation helped me find my power, remember that I always have the power, that nobody has power over me unless I allow it, and gave me the strength to leave that relationship. I'm sharing this for a reason, because way later on, when I started getting deeper into the quantum stuff, I was in this deep meditation, and I was going back to all the past versions of me. I held myself when I was a baby. I talked to myself when I was a toddler. And then when I got to the teenage me, I spent a lot more time with her. And I was like, you're going to get through this no matter what. Just keep, your head high. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I was just pouring so much love into her. And then I had this epiphany, and I was like, oh my God, all that time when I was a teenager. Now, of course, we have spirit guides and stuff like that. But back then, when I was a teenager, I thought, oh, it's my spirit guides and angels. They're helping me. I never considered that it was actually a future me that also was guiding me, was, saying there's a light at the end of the tunnel, my higher self, whatever you want to call it, that went back. And I went back in that meditation and gave her hope to keep going, to keep her head up, to keep meditating, to, know she's worthy, all this stuff. And for me, that was like a really big aha moment, and showed me that everything's happening simultaneously, as we all know, but it's easier to say it than actually conceptualize it. But I also see our future, our desires as future memories. And our higher self or our quote unquote future self is still guiding us, like is pulling us forward. And that's your intuition. That's the nudges that you get. But your human self, because we have ego and fear and all of that, likes to make all these reasons up, why you shouldn't do something, or fear, and we really got to get better at listening to our intuition and our inner wisdom, even when it doesn't make logical sense. And that's something that I continue to practice and share and do. But that's kind of a little bit about how I got into quantum manifestation. And then I started connecting the dots on my journey and things started making more sense. And it's a subject and a topic that, of course, is very hard to fully explain. It's very out there and esoteric, if you will, but it's also scientific too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just explain it and share it in the way that I am able to, based on my experiences and downloads and the things that have supported me on my journey. I find it's really fascinating, and it's a powerful way to view manifestation or conscious creation through just shifting our reality, our holographic reflection, by focusing on our dominant vibration and who we're being.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so powerful. Even though I've heard you say that story before, when you were talking, I just got like full body goosebumps of you giving yourself that guidance and then having the blessing of remembering that. I think between each lifetime, we get this like, oh, that's why this happened. And oh, yeah, like we get that higher perspective, but how beautiful to get that while you're here to unlock that next level of, not only the fact that you're healing yourself and you're the one that can do that, healing the past, but then also like, holy shit, what's possible for the future then? And I was thinking about how even just as we get into this quantum work, for anyone that's new or really starting to, look at it more fine tuned, when we connect with that future version of ourselves, if we're doing it for the future, who is the version of me who has written the best-selling book or has overcome this big thing that I'm going through, or, has the mansion by the beach or whatever it is you want. When we start to look at that and go like, what would she do? And how can I connect with her energy? It's also assuming success for yourself versus assuming, like we go, is this going to work? Like a lot of humans, especially before the awakening journey or before the big part of the awakening, we go like, is it possible? Can I actually do it? But it's so powerful to go to the future where it's done and start moving toward that end result, assuming it's done versus like, because we can do that for the past because now you're here, going back, going, girl, like you're going to get through this. I'm here for you. And you see now it's done. You have left the relationship. You have transformed so much compared to that time in your life. So we can use that almost like assumption of our success moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Quantum healing and quantum manifestation. Quantum healing is you go back, you're healing your past, and it also does change the trajectory of the future as well.
Yeah. So with quantum manifestation, how do you describe it when somebody asks you, they're in the manifestation game, we're seekers, our minds are open, because it is a fairly, as you said, to conceptualize it is difficult. But how do you describe it? If someone's like, well, what's the difference between manifestation and quantum manifestation?
There's a lot of differences. I think that, traditional manifestation, there's a lot of different techniques and things like that. As I've grown and evolved on my journey, I like to remind people that we're really just manifesting our true self. It's not the things that you want outside of you that you think you want. You want those things because you think that they're going to make you feel something. But what you're really seeking is to feel that within yourself and to come into union with who you truly are. And when you come into union with who you truly are, your outer reality reflects. So when I think of quantum manifestation, I want to remind people that it's about you stepping into that version of yourself who's in the it is done reality, not because you want the thing, but because you want to be fully expressed. You want to be free in yourself. You want to, not be holding back or hiding in different ways, and we start to bring, it's like we start to create a magnetic pull between that quote unquote future reality and now, which was like collapsing time, as we step into that version of ourselves, as we continue to make different choices or more empowered choices right here, right now. It's not this, oh, I'm going to be embodying this future me and, still thinking of it in a linear way. It's like, okay, this is what that version of me believes, operates like, acts like. Cool. How can I bring some pieces of that into right now? And keeping that into mind, how would that version of me respond in this situation? And the more you start to embody that, of course, you got to do some clearing work too. But the more you start embodying that, the more it becomes who you be and who you are and what you do. It just becomes second nature. And it's also important to clear the old that may be in the way, because sometimes people have a challenging time embodying that version of themselves because there's a lot of stuck energy or limiting beliefs or whatever that are in the way still, that haven't been fully processed or transcended, if you will, which also doesn't take a whole lot of time, but everybody's on their own journey and everybody has their own process, and that's okay too. So the difference between regular manifestation and quantum manifestation is just a different way of going about it and looking at it in my personal experience. Whereas quantum manifestation is more like shifting timelines, if you will, remembering that everything, it already exists. Everything is happening now, the past, present, and future, and to align with your quote unquote highest timeline where your desired outcomes are happening or what's in your highest good is happening. It's what we do and who we be in the now. Whereas regular manifestation is a lot around like, the limiting belief work, the affirmations, the, different manifestation techniques or whatever. But there is some overlap, of course, as well. And there's value in a lot of these different tools at times, depending, where you're coming from when you're using these tools. And also, it really just comes down to you being who you truly are versus the programmed, conditioned self. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point, the whole journey.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. There's so much that you said there that is just so powerful that I want everybody to really take in. And I love that you're saying it's not about changing yourself. It's about becoming who you truly are, which is exactly the way that I see it as well. Cause, we're hooked up to the same channel. We get the same information. It's truth. It's not about changing who you are. And I actually had a client in a group container recently. We were talking about quantum and, imagining that version of you and what kind of habits they have and, the way they think of things, the way you're saying. And she was just having kind of a day and she was kind of triggered. And she wrote in a group chat, she's like, I'm kind of sick of feeling like I need to change myself. I love who I am. I don't want to become someone different. And I sent back this voice memo that was sort of the perfect comment to kind of go into like, yes, that's good. Actually, the fact that you caught yourself in that or that you're feeling that because it's not about changing. And that's, I think, somewhere that manifestation itself can sometimes get almost like it does encourage you to change who you are, to change what you're doing, to take new actions, to change your point of attraction. So yes, it's true, but the quantum manifestation is like that change, quote unquote change, comes from you being more you versus trying to be a different, motivated, disciplined, more like, spiritual version of you or whatever. So it's really interesting because it's absolutely not about changing yourself. And I just love that you say that. And then people go, and I remember being in this position, I'm like, but there's things I want to change. Like I want to eat less processed food and I want to exercise more. And yes, there's things to shift, but that deep down desire of eating healthier or exercising more or meditating every day is coming from within you. It's coming from the highest self going, this is your path to freedom. It's not coming from externally meditate so that you get the $20,000 months. And you pointed to that. You're like, it's not about doing it for the end result. It's about doing it because this is who you truly are. This is what you want to be deep down, if that makes sense. More you versus more something else, if that
Yeah.
makes
Yeah.
sense. I don't know.
It does make sense. And there's a little bit of nuances in there too. Of course, like because there are going to be some things that you're going to want to shift to, that are different. Like if I still ate the shitty stuff that I ate before, I lost 60 pounds when I was in that toxic relationship too. But if I still ate the crappy things and didn't work out and didn't meditate, like I would still be overweight and all the things. But because I had the vision of what I wanted and how I wanted to feel and all the stuff, I changed little habits and things. And we're going to also have to lean into edges too on this journey because, it's just part of growth and it's not always comfortable. And the ego will try to make you think that, it doesn't want to change or doesn't want to shift or anything like that. So there are some little nuances in it, and you just need to expand your awareness of what you're ready and willing to do and what shifts make most sense for you right now. But it is always coming back to more of who you truly are, not being someone you're not. You're already been someone you're not. It's the programming and conditioning.
Yeah. I love that.
You just think that it's who you are.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Because there are behaviors we shift over time. Like you said, the food changes or the habits, the coping strategies change, the how you keep yourself doing okay changes from maybe alcohol and drugs, if it's, our story, to something that's more beneficial to your spirit and to your body and that kind of thing. But again, it's coming from, like, for me, I just did a 30-day self yoga challenge just within myself. I just wanted to get on my mat every day for 30 days. And that's shifting, pushing a little bit to be a little bit more devoted, a little bit more consistent, and so there were days where I'm like, I don't feel like it. I'm sick. I don't want to do it. I have a headache, but I'm like, Talia, you're worth it. And it was a bumpy road. It wasn't a perfect journey, but that was me wanting to change certain behaviors. But why? Because she does that. My version of me that's more fully expressed, that's more magnetic, that's more a fuller aura, shows up for herself in her body because it helps my creativity. It helps me to feel good. It helps me to nourish myself. So there are points where we pull out that, people would call it willpower or motivation or strength, but really it's just this mojo from inside, this desire to be all I'm meant to be. That's what gets me on the mat every day. That's what gets me to shift behaviors, is because I love myself and I believe in my quote unquote future, versus because I should, because I'm lazy, because, and it's just a totally different motivation.
Totally. I definitely feel you. And sometimes you might not want to do the things that will make you feel better. And that's kind of like, this isn't about being perfect either. We're human, and it's just like, yeah, having that conversation. Like, I'm doing this because I know it's going to make me feel better. So, yeah.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about embodiment. And I also want to ask you too about light language, which is on this journey, but a slight pivot. But first, let's talk about embodiment. And you, again, were one of the first people that I kind of, maybe it's just I heard you in a way that I hadn't heard other people, like, oh, we have to embody that next level. And it was all very out there. And, from working with so many people, I know also from being seekers, it's like, how do I embody a millionaire when I'm not a millionaire? How do I embody success when I feel not successful? So first of all, what to you is embodiment? What does it have to do with manifestation? And how do we kind of start to bridge that gap of embodying even just a little bit more of that next level of who we are?
It's a pretty deep thing when it comes to embodiment, the way that I look at it. A big part of embodying something to me is taking the actions that are aligned with what you say you desire, or taking actions that are in alignment with your values, taking actions in alignment with your highest good. That's, to me, a big part of embodying something. Embodying is also like being in your body and, creating the feelings of safety, peace, joy, abundance within yourself through different practices that you have. Allowing yourself to feel your emotions or the things that come up, having integrity within yourself. When I talk about like embodying what you teach, preach, and believe in, a lot of times with my clients, it has to do with the first thing I said of like, are you actually embodying the things that you're talking about? Like, are you doing the things that you know are supportive of you that you're helping other people with, or are you not? So that's like gives a little bit of extra context of like what embodying looks like with your work. But when it comes to embodying your quote unquote next level, or your the version of you who's living in the it is done reality, I like to bring little pieces in the now. This is how I tell people to do it. And because depending on where you're at on your journey or what shifts you've already made, or maybe you haven't made yet, it can feel like a lot of shifts. You're like, oh my gosh, that when I tap into that version of me, there's so many different things that she's doing or believing. And you might feel like, oh, I can't do all those things right now, because blah, blah, blah. And you think that you can definitely tap into the energy of it. And you can definitely start to bring some of those things into the now. And some of the ways that I like to do that is with my physical space or my physical appearance or something in my physical reality where I will either shift my day, shift the way that I spend my morning. If I tune in, like here's something I did recently. I recently like revisited my next level vision for my life and my business and like how I want to feel in different areas. And one of the things was I want to have a home gym, because for the longest time I wanted to make a gym in my garage. I've lived in my house for like 4 years now and I never freaking did it. And my garage was filled with like extra shit that I didn't need. And so when I got really clear about this vision, I was like, that's it. I'm cleaning the freaking garage. I spent a whole weekend. I like donated so much stuff, like sold things, got rid of the things and made the space. And it was funny. A friend of mine was moving out and got rid of all her gym stuff, which was a full dumbbell set and like all these amazing gym mats and stuff. And I was like, I'll freaking buy it off you. Like, yes, I just cleaned out my garage for the gym. And so it's still in process. There's more that I want to do with it, but I mean, it might sound small to some people, but it is a huge deal for me because I love working out and I love going to the gym as well, but I also like having my space at my house. I feel like I actually get more done. It's like the hermit in me likes like just to be in my own space as well. And the things showed up when I made the space for it and took the first step. And that's an example of could be an example of embodying, your next level vision, no matter what it looks like. Of course, it's not like my dream gym in my garage just yet. It's in process. There have been other times where I would connect to my next level self and I would see that she has a different style, or there was something about the way that she carried herself, and so I thought about how can I bring that into now, shift my style a little bit. There was a time I went through a little phase of like wearing a different color lipstick. I didn't even have to try this time for my hair change. I just discovered I have wavy hair after 37 freaking years in August, and I'm like, okay, like this is my next level identity over here. So
That
those
was
are
really
stuff.
funny to watch you be like, okay, guys, I saw like a reel or a live or something one day. You're like, I've just realized I have wavy hair. And then now you're just rocking it. And it looks so great, so natural, so free. And that's so funny. Talk about identity shifting.
Oh my God, it was such a big deal for me. Like I made it. I mean, my friends probably got tired of me talking about my wavy hair because it was like, holy shit. Like imagine waking up and you have a different color eyes. That's literally how I felt. I'm like, oh my God. And anyway, but yeah, that was like a good, cool, fun, unexpected identity shift. So there's little ways that you could bring that into your now moment to embody it through your habits. And you can even incrementally change your habits. because, it takes time to build new habits or to let go of different things. So you could incrementally do that, whatever that looks like for you. Back when I was in that abusive relationship, I started with meditating. I'm going to meditate every day for 10, 20 minutes. I added that. I added working out. And then, it wasn't consistent at first, but it gradually gets there. So those are some ways that you could start embodying things in the now. Hopefully I gave some good examples, but you really need a vision to pull you. I believe so, because it's like and it doesn't need to be super specific for everybody. I mean, everybody's different. It could be specific, but it also could have room for flexibility. Mm. And that vision is going to pull, it's going to create that magnetic pull as you start to realize, oh, well, all right, this is my vision. So these are the things that I'm going to do now. And it's like you're working together with your vision and it creates that pull. But imagine driving somewhere new and you had no idea how to get there and your GPS wasn't working. You probably wouldn't get there, or you would have to ask someone else for directions, or, you'd need to print something, whatever. Like it would take you longer to get there, So the same thing goes for when we're consciously creating the reality that we desire. It's like, what do you want to feel? Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What does it look like? And how can you start to bring some of that energy into right now? It's all energy. It's not the thing, remember. It's the way that you want to feel. And you can always create and connect with those feelings right now. Even if you think you can't, you can. It just takes practice and awareness and having different things that support your nervous system.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of times too, people go like, I can't because. So we almost need to move through that of like, why, not even spending time on why can't you? But I know people think about it, and I used to think about it really tangibly. Like I said, how do I act like a millionaire when I'm not a millionaire? But we got to get more almost like subtle. Like, what does your abundant self, or the part of you that feels supported, safe, secure? There's other ways. It's not just like, because I always used to people be like, what would you, what's your millionaire self like? And I would always go to like, my Amazon cart's full. I'm fucking going on retreats. I've got 12 mentors. It was always about the money I was going to spend. Mm-hmm. And when I started really realizing, no, when the feeling of money in the bank, or even the feeling of your Amazon package on the way, whatever, it's an energy, like you said, not just a getting of the thing. Mm-hmm. It's relief. It's freedom, as you already touched on, which is such a big one. It's that feeling of safety, security, freedom. So what else can we do to embody that freedom, or to trust that it's coming, or to practice our faith and trust muscle, or whatever it is? It's not just all the shit you're going to buy. And that was like, it blocked me for so long. So I'm like, I don't know how to act like I have all this money when I don't have, but it's it's a frequency. One thing in my business, I realized when you said you have to have a vision of where you're going. At one point, I would always picture my business and freedom. And I would go, well, I can't create freedom because I don't have the money to just have all this freedom. And I have to take calls. I have to do. And I was locked in that. But when I started going, what can I do? And it was like, okay, the last week of every month, I wouldn't book any calls. That's where it started a few months ago or a few years ago. The last week of every month, I had no calls. All of a sudden, I had 1 week a month. I was free to create, to work out, to go for walks, to, take a lunch. And then I started to recognize, no, there's things I can do. And I started to shift. My mentorship went from calls to voice memo support, where I had way more freedom. So I kind of incrementally started creating more freedom in my schedule, because I realized as my next level version of me, I didn't want to be hunched over my desk all day. I wanted actual freedom. So sometimes we do have to be like, what can I do from where I am? And not just, I can't because, and start going, okay, if freedom's so important, how can I create more freedom?
Mm-hmm, totally.
So when we're talking about embodiment, is there a tool? You did mention a lot of things, but something that you like to do or even bring into your daily practice? What do you do sort of every day to, activate that next level you and embody them?
This is a great question. I love talking about this. So I have, I call it the empowered method. And actually it's a practice. And it's also something that I do from time to time live within a group setting virtually. I kind of infuse some of this, but essentially it's the letter M dash powered because it's music, movement, mantras, and mirror work, and sometimes microdosing. And so this is a powerful embodiment practice because it gets all of your senses on board, it shifts your state, and it really supports in a lot of ways. There's so many ways that I use this practice, but just to start, it is, I'll explain each one. So the music, have you ever listened to a song that reminds you of something or it makes you feel pumped up? Like music sparks emotions, it's an anchor. And we all have a song that gets us pumped up. And if you don't, you definitely need to have a song like that. So that's why the music part is so powerful because it shifts your state. The movement part is because you start to move energy. How do we move energy? We got to move our freaking body. So music, change your state. Movement, move the energy. Mantras are just power statements. I look at when I say mantras, I'm meaning like just power statements that empower you in front of the mirror. And it doesn't need to be something that's like super far off that you don't like believe. It could just be something that you need to hear today. Like you're a fucking badass. Like go on with your bad self. Like whatever it is, it could be silly. It could be just something that you remind yourself of, like, you know, whatever that is for you in front of the mirror. And because there's so much power with the vibration of our voice. I don't care what anybody says. I hear people say shit about affirmations, and obviously affirmations are only one part of the equation. I like power mantras are you declaring something, saying something with power and conviction using the vibration of your voice, which is your own tuning fork. So, and words are spells. So that's why power mantras are powerful. So we got music, movement, mantras. The mirror work is really powerful because I have full length mirror in almost every room, and I call it the reality mirror because it's like a portal into your alternate reality, if you will. And the mirror allows us to practice seeing ourselves, hearing ourselves, watching ourselves in a new energy, or saying these different things, or moving our body in a certain way, or even walking up to it in a certain or sexy way or whatever. And you're getting more of your senses on board. I've even done mirror work when I was upset and crying and going up to the mirror and saying, you know what? I still think you're awesome. I love you anyway. I know you're not feeling great right now. And just like having that connection with myself. And so those are the main M's. And I invite people to do this, even if it's just one song. You put on one pump up song you like, you move your body in front of the mirror. It might feel awkward if you've never done it before. And then say whatever you need to say to yourself. And that might feel awkward too. And keep doing it until you feel that conviction in your voice and you connect to yourself in a multidimensional way through the mirror. And then the microdosing, of course, is optional. It's like an added little sparkle.
I love that. And there's also been so much science starting to come out about microdosing and its ability to help you rewrite your neural pathways and the subconscious reprogramming, which is just awesome.
That's why it's extra powerful with this practice. And, you know, sometimes I even get more intentional on the days that I do microdose. Like I'll speak to my cells in front of the mirror.
That's so powerful. And I love the way you talk about mantras too, because I think, like you say, with affirmations and mantras, either people look at it like, okay, I'm just going to say I'm a millionaire 3 times a day and everything's going to change. They don't get it. Or it's like, those don't work. And it's like either it's going to change your entire reality with a couple words, or they don't work. And it's somewhere in between where I believe, just like you, is that they are so powerful. Like you said, your cells are listening. I always say that, like your cells are listening to your voice, to your words, to your thoughts. But when we can bridge the gap with these statements, when we can say like every day, like the better it gets, the better it gets, or look at you going, like you haven't given up yet, you keep rising, clarity's on the way. Like even if it's not, I am a badass, I am all of these things, we can't quite get behind that. we can bridge the gap with, look at you go. Like, I love you. I care about you. You're doing a great job. Like, some days that's all I can say to myself, but that shifts my mood. And usually then you incrementally can go up the ladder, where then you're starting to feel a little bit better. So then you can get on board with, like, everything's turning around. It's all getting better now, and you can kind of move up. And with the movement and the music, that's totally what I do every day. I bring in music. Depending on my mood, sometimes I'm more stompy and like
Mhm.
grounding, and other days it's just more like floaty and goddessy. And yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Such a good practice.
Yeah. And I like that you kind of brought this to the point of the mantras. Like, if anyone hasn't seen how water changes when you speak to it, or how plants, or there's the rice experiment, that something with plants, and the water changes and crystallizes into these beautiful patterns when there's words of love or whatever,
Mhm.
words, feelings, whatever. So like, it's obviously proven that, you know, our words are powerful and our feelings are powerful, and they change the vibration of different things, and including ourself. And when we're in a higher vibration, we're able to be more resourceful with our thoughts that we're entertaining, with the actions that we're taking, and so on. So yeah.
And you could kind of ask yourself, what is my true self? Or if you want to say higher self, or, I try not to be like best self, because that does imply like perfection and Buddha bowls every day. And that's just not always what life is. But like, what is your true self whispering to you? You're doing a great job. Keep fucking going. You have a sparkle that the world needs. Like, you're rocking this. You haven't given up yet. Look how brave you are. Look how strong you are. We don't even have to like imagine some Tony Robbins saying to, like, we can actually ask ourselves, like, what is your true self saying to you right now? Your higher self, your spirit team, if you need to, if it's kind of convoluted inside, like, what are your guides and angels and your Nana in heaven? Like, what are they saying to you? That's where sometimes I like to go, is like, what are those words of wisdom that want to come through?
Mm-hmm.
That's just, yeah, so powerful. And I love to think, when I first started getting the quantum breakthroughs, what I realized it in the shower, where all good shit happens. And I realized, like, if I could be that version of me, because the law of attraction's real, without any other, esoteric kind of things, in that moment, I am attracting toward me that reality. Like, if right now I'm feeling good, and right now I'm doing my music and my mantras, and I'm like, woo, it's not just a moment that you felt good for the sake of feeling good. In that moment, you're attracting toward you that reality, more things to dance around to, more things to be genuinely grateful for. The more moments you spend in embodiment, the more moments you're attracting more of that towards you, which, that to me has me like want to shift my state and want to move through the stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And on the flip side of that too, it's not about like brushing things under the rug when you have things come up. I think it's learning how to love yourself even through the moments where you feel like a hot mess, even through the
Mm.
moments where you feel not good enough, even through the moments where there's a bubbling of emotion, which is just energy coming up to the surface to be moved. It's just asking to be moved. And sometimes it wants to be moved through crying. Sometimes it wants to be moved through, some kind of movement or breath or screaming, even. Like, it's just energy that needs to move. And that was a big part of my journey as well. I used to push things down. I used to
Mm.
not want to feel the things because, like, I didn't want to create that in my reality or blah, blah, blah. And um, I learned that it's actually an even deeper self love to feel what's coming up and actually alchemize the energy through that.
Mhm.
That, yes, it does shift it, and it shows yourself. It's like you're creating more safety within yourself when you're able to hold your emotions without judgment,
Mm.
and and be able to shift and get into that more empowered state. But it's not to, ignore or judge whatever's coming up. I used to judge the shit out of things that came up for me, and it was like, And sometimes I go there and I catch myself and I'm like, all right, this is what's coming up. This is what I'm feeling right now. Can I give myself the space to move this? And that has been a game changer for me in just my own personal and spiritual growth,
Mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of people have a misconception where it's like they think that you need to feel good all the time and then they beat themselves up if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about that at all. Yes, your dominant vibration, of course, attracts what's resonant. And part of being able to embody that dominant vibration more often is being able to move the energy when it's needing to move, even if it's undesirable. That's still making your vibration your number one priority.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. That's so powerful. Cool. I feel like we've covered so much. I do want to just have a moment where I'd like to talk about light language before we wrap up, just because it is something that you have talked about so much over the years. As we were saying before we hit record, that you get a lot of questions about it. So for those knee deep seekers, what is light language and what happens? How does it start to become activated? And sort of even in your journey, why do you think it's become activated with you in the last couple of years?
Yeah. Well, I think it's becoming activated in a lot of people, especially since 2020. More and more and more and more people have opened up their gifts, opened up their light language. Obviously, it's for a reason as we're going through the Great Awakening, and just people are waking up and just integrating more of their multidimensional self. So, the way that I like to describe light language is a multidimensional form of communication through sound frequencies. And it's just sound frequencies, the vibration of your voice could do it, but that's vocal light language. There's a lot of different types. But I primarily use it with my hands or my voice. And it's a form of communication that bypasses the subconscious or the conscious mind and goes into the subconscious mind for either the person receiving it or the person transmitting it or both. And it has an intelligence of its own that speaks directly to, like I said, the unconscious mind and also the cells that, in my experience of it from myself and also facilitating for clients, supporting with activations, it supports with releasing dense energy or information on a cellular level that is not fully resonant with what they're stepping into, or that's no longer resonant. That just stuck dense energy or programming, belief systems, things that are ready to go. And also, it can activate dormant information on a cellular level, like new perspectives, new insights, different state of how they feel, even physical shifts. And it can open up your gifts and so much more. And it's been really incredible using this divine gift and tool and supporting other people with opening theirs or even just sharing it. I talk to a lot of people who've already opened theirs and they have a little fear on sharing it. And it's something that we all have the ability to do. In the simplest terms, I like to describe light language as basically like the language of your soul. Beyond human words that can kind of box things in, it's just your sound frequencies that have a lot more meaning and a lot more information encoded within that than can be done in regular words.
That's really powerful. Do you feel that it comes from, so you're saying it's a language of the soul. Do you feel it comes from like your star family and stuff? Or do you think
Yeah.
it's like,
Well, there's different places that it comes from. I mean, there's different energies. If you think of everything as energy, there's different energies that can come through your channel as sound through light language. It could be your higher self, it could be, your star family, it could be, just source energy streaming through. It could be a lot of different types of energies. This is also why you hear people channeling different types of interdimensional extraterrestrial beings, like channeling the Arcturians or the Lyrans, and different energies may have a different dialect or sound frequency that comes through. There's also, like I said, other forms of light language. People draw it. People do things with their hands. That's a form of it. But like I said, for me, it's mainly the vocal and the hands. And I know there are a lot of people who, specifically channel different uh, star races or whatever. I have a few that I resonate with. I don't get super hung up on the details of that. I have my way of connecting in, and bringing source energy through and creating a whole container for myself and others when I do it. Um, and it's a really cool way to be a bridge between the unseen realms and the physical realms. In my experience, when my light language opened, and as I've been doing it over the years, I have felt the different types of energies coming in. And sometimes it feels like a multidimensional aspects of myself in different forms or energies or whatever. And other times I can tell when it's a particular um, being of love, like, the Arcturians have come through in my channeling often. And it's all been really powerful information that often leads to bigger downloads, if that makes sense. So it might be whether I'm transmitting it for myself or for other people, there usually is more information that comes through beyond that, like as far as a download, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Like,
not always in that moment. It could be like days or whatever later. For me, I do during and after. For other people, it's always different.
mm,
Like everybody's different. And if I'm doing it in a group, it's obviously I have my own intention and to just bring through, the clearest form of this for everyone's highest good, but it might be different for one person to the next.
mm,
One person may receive a download, the other person may start crying because
mm-hmm.
they needed an emotional release. And the other person may just feel peaceful and then maybe they get a download the next day. There's no right or wrong or set in stone type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally just a form of um, energy work, if you want to look at it like that. It's also a form of uninhibited expression, if you want to look at it that way.
Mm,
And it's something that we all have the ability to do. And it's just been forgotten, so to speak. And that's also why I think a lot more people are either drawn to it because they feel like, or they maybe have an inner knowing that they're meant to open theirs. Or a lot of people have opened theirs unexpectedly over the last couple of years. And they're like, what do I do with this now? And because more people are waking up and the frequency shifting on the planet. And that's a lot of what's going into this. And at the same time, it's really, really, really important that you have discernment and you do your own work and you have energetic hygiene so that you can ensure that you are bringing in like the highest frequencies of love, of light, and you're not just doing it from like an ego space or whatever. You're like really grounded in that you are yeah, you have energetic hygiene. You're protecting your energy, you're cleansing your space, and so on. You're not just like blindly
mm.
doing it.
Yeah. I love that how you've described it because I don't know a ton about light language. Of course, I've seen it in the space but I love that you said like because it's different for everybody, which just reminds me of like if I'm doing a chakra clearing or anytime I'm in a breathwork session hosting it or a student sound bowls like some like you said one person's going to be crying, one person's going to get like the whole download of their business or what they need to do next in their life because it's a healing frequency given to you. So it's almost like a vitamin of your energy depending on what you need, just like certain chanting or melodies, like even just hearing someone sing. Someone could sing opera and I'm like I have no idea what they're saying, but I'm bawling because it's so beautiful. But it's just even farther like codes, information, unlockings, activations of what you need right now.
I've done like videos before where it's like I'll either get a message that this is going to be for this particular thing. Like, for example, clearing your throat chakra. So I'm going to bring in this light language to support in clearing your throat chakra, and then do that. And there have been other ones where like it's around just clearing distortions around being seen or something like that, and then bring that through. And I often am guided to guide people to focus on different areas of their body, or breathe into certain areas, or make a sound, or even tap. I've been combining tapping and light language as well to further support the movement of the energy or the activation. So it's clearings and also activations. But I'm just guided by, what I'm guided by when I'm doing them. And yeah, so some of them can have intentions, and some of them it's gonna do what it's meant to do if you're willing and open to receive it. And yeah.
That's so cool. And I love that we're awakening new ways to communicate, like divine spirit, consciousness, because we do need to bypass our conscious brain as humans. I say to my husband sometimes, I'm like, I don't know if we're going to make it out of this one, like ourselves. I do know that we're in a huge awakening and we're headed to a better place. But humans, man, we got to get out of our head and out of our reactions if we're really going to change the world and change the way we do things. And so it's beautiful that it's not a conscious process. It's a receiving of information, of codes, of medicine without the brain being so involved. What is something that someone could do, or how to be available for this light language to start to be activated? What would you say for that?
A few things. The first thing is it's going to require releasing work. There's certain things that you might need to release to open up your channel more. That was my case and a lot of people's cases, where I released a lot of grief from my body, and the channel opened. So, but it started with intention. I knew something was going to come through before it ever did. And so I would I wrote about it in my journal for years. I used to just write like, God, source, like, please use me as a vessel for the highest frequencies of love. Like, I'm here to be a channel, like, just use me to spread love, spread, the message, whatever. And I knew it was going to happen a little bit before it did. And because I just intuitively knew. And it started with movement and vocalization. Like, I would dance in front of my mirror, just like I shared already with my empowered thing. And I noticed that there was a time when I started doing these different hand movements, like kind of just intuitively out of nowhere while I was dancing. And it felt really good when I did it. And I just kept doing it. And I was like, wow, I'm like moving my energy. And shortly after that, I just decided to just start making sound. And I would just let myself vocalize anything. And then right after that, pretty much, I was in a medicine journey, and the sounds just came out without my consciously trying. It just did. And I was like, oh, whoa, I already made those sounds. And then there was a full activation that happened at one point. That's a whole nother story. But it happened with starting with the hand movements and just intuitively moving, having the intention, feeling like something was ready to open up, letting go of emotion, dense energy or stuck emotions in my body that supported with the channel opening. So it's a combo of things.
It's like
and for people, it's probably different. That's how I like to share it. Like, have an intention, be willing to do the release work, and start actually vocalizing. Let yourself make sounds. Let yourself move your hands the way that you want. Like, you're going to support your channel opening by doing that.
Yeah. Allowing. When I teach intuitive development, it's the same thing. It's allowing it and then trusting it and learning how to just let it be there without all the second guessing.
Yeah. In its purest form, I like to just tell people, if you really want to take everything else away, just think of it as pure, uninhibited expression, and how freeing that could feel. Like, that's your soul expressing itself, like spirit expressing itself through you. And it can be really powerful in that way because it gets you out of ego.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this has been so good. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for just being willing to share all this stuff. I know it's what you love to talk about, but I just really honor your energy and your take on everything, your teachings. There's been some really powerful, tangible stuff that people can walk away with, as well as just an expansive conversation. So thank you so much for sharing everything today. And let us know what's your business and how can people find you?
Yeah. So I love connecting with people on Instagram. So anyone listening, if you really resonated with what I share, you want to know more, hit me up, tag me when you listen to this podcast. It's my Instagram is it's Stephanie Sage. And yeah, I love connecting with people on there the most. I also have everything on my website, spiritualbossbabe.com. And you can find all the different things on there, from free things I have to paid programs, whatever. And my podcast, Spiritual Boss Babe Podcast, which may or may not be evolving in the future.
Maybe.
I'm still in my process, and I'm like totally okay with that.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for the evolution. There are certain things I feel are in the process unfolding. They're still unfolding.
I'm going to put all the links down below. So make sure to check out Stephanie. Sometimes on Instagram, we see her light language and lots of just fun things in stories and reels.
I have a really good one pinned to the top, actually, one of my favorite light languages on my Instagram.
Make sure to check it all out. I'll put it all in the show notes. Well, thank you so much again. I'll put everything below. And it was such an honor chatting with you today.
Thank you so much, Talia. This is awesome.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode on the Awakening Her podcast. I hope you enjoyed this conversation between me and my guest. And if you did, we would love to hear from you. Come find us on Instagram. All the links are below in the show notes. Take a screenshot that you're listening to this episode, sharing your takeaways or your enthusiasm for the show. Tag us both over on Instagram. And if you do that, I will send you a free gift. I really do hope you enjoyed this conversation, and I will see you in the next episode.